Okay, ladies and gentlemen, looks like our runners have begun. Let me quickly introduce you guys to all of the runners. We have for you guys tonight a four-way match, although not rather two 1v1 matches, but some very special matches at that. All four of these runners are in the same group, the Vampire group, and all four of them are currently one loss, one win. So whomever wins tonight for each of the matches, that is the person that will move on to the double elimination and to the top 16. So for all of these runners, tonight is going to be a very, very special race. Now let me quickly introduce you guys to the game. So the Final Fantasy I PSP version is unique to an equipment glitch. It looks like Kibetha was having some trouble, but it seems fine now. But the PSP version is unique to an equipment glitch where using an item, they can switch characters on the same frame. They go into the menu, and with that, they can switch from an armor slot to a weapon slot or vice versa, allowing them to equip an item that they don't actually have. For example, you saw all of these runners buy a hammer, and that hammer ID corresponds with the armor ID of the knight's armor, which is a really powerful piece of armor. So at this point, all of these runners have a pretty strong piece of armor equipped as it is, as they are heading towards the first dungeon. Now, as they do, let me introduce you guys to all of the runners a little bit. So on the top left, we have Ausabe, who is probably one of the oldest, or probably by far the oldest runner of these three. Somebody that has gotten very close to beating world record at times. At his peak, having once lost the world record to being trolled for a few seconds by the broom, finishing mere seconds off of what at that point was the record time. On the top right, we have Boxmeister, who is going up against Ausabe, still a very new runner to this game, but he has shown a lot of promise already, so I'm very curious to see what he's going to do tonight. On the bottom, we have two, again, new runners. This is pretty much a group full of new runners, Nehbless versus Kibetha, both of which have shown a lot of promise, both of which have gotten some really good times already this tournament, despite how new these guys are. So we've got three really new runners, one very experienced runner, but all four with really, really solid times. Just to give you guys an idea, their current average times after two matches are all within 4 minutes of each other, ranging anywhere between, I believe, a 133 to a 137. So very close together. Definitely can go either way depending on what the RNG is going to give these guys. Now, all of these guys, you just saw them kill Garland. Basically, their first quest is to, save the princess, which they just did. They get sent on a quest by the king to save the princess from Garland, whom after they do, they are the warriors of light, and their goal is basically to restore the light to the four crystals, and with that, they can open up a time portal, sending them 2,000 years into the past, allowing them to fight, or because of which they can fight Garland again, breaking a time loop that's basically keeping them locked in. So all four of these runners getting Garland pretty close together. Very, very small differences here, and they all get the bridge build. Now, as this cutscene is playing, I want to mainly mention the guy in the bottom left. You'll notice all of these guards working really, really hard to fix the bridge, except for the one guy in the bottom left. He's just standing there, waving around his arm a little bit, not nearly doing as much as all of the other people. Now, it looks like Ausabe is going to take a first lead, and he's going to step onto the bridge, and that's going to throw him into a cutscene. Now, on every single version of the game, this cutscene is not skippable, except for this version, the PSP version, where by just mashing X, they can just skip through the cutscene. Looks like Nehbless has a very small lead on Kibetha right now, heading towards the second town. So for the early part of this game, it's mostly going to be like one giant fetch quest, we like to say. These runners, they've now saved the princess, so they're going to get a ship, which is in Provoca. after which they need to get to the other ocean from where they can get to the crystals. Problem is, the path to the other ocean is blocked off. They can try to build they're trying to build a canal, which is close to finishing, but isn't quite yet done. Now, in order to open up this canal, what they need to do is they need to get that ship, and they need to get the nitro powder, which was actually in the first castle, but it's behind a locked door. So they need to get the mystic key in order to open up this door. Now, that would be very easy because the key is in the Elven Castle. Problem is, the Elven Prince, he possesses that key, but he's currently under a sleeping curse, so that's not going to work out. Since that's not going to be an option, they need to find a way of awakening the prince, which they can do using the Jolt Tonic, which they can get from Matoya, which is still no problem, were it not for the fact that Matoya is currently missing an eye, because of which she can't see. Now, the eye was stolen by the Dark Elf, Dark Elf Astos, who will only fight us if we try to give him the crown. So we gotta get to the crown, or once they get the ship, they're gonna pick up the crown in order to get the Mystic Eye, in order to get the Jolt Tonic, in order to get the Mystic Key, in order to get the Nitro Powder, and finally be able to move on into the first town. This is indeed the run where they're going to get the Barbarian Sword, which is one of the equipment upgrades that they will get a little bit later on in the run. Looks like Boxmeister managed to take a small lead on Ausabe, being the first of these four to get the ship, and he's going to head out towards Marsh Cave. So as they sail, one thing you'll notice is the encounters on the ship. They may not get any because the encounter rate on the ship is fairly low. They may also get a lot, and encounters on the ship in general are not fun. They are some of the worst encounters you can possibly get. So both Boxmeister and Ausabe getting a preemptive shark, Boxmeister, or both of them being able to run from that. Ausabe now getting a second shark, which he's just going to opt to kill. Nehbless struggling with some Sahagins and some Sahagan chiefs, as Kibetha finally manages to get to Provoka and start talking to the pirates as well. There's a few segments on the ship, and it's going to make quite a difference in time as to, you know, how these two are going to, or how these people are going to deal with the encounters there, especially early on. They can be very, very painful. So looks like Boxmeister is still with a steady lead. I will mention again, each of the winners of this match is the one that will move on into top 16. So it's going to be interesting to see what these racers are going to do. We've got Ausabe, who currently has the best average time of these four. But that doesn't mean a thing because they're all on 1v1 or 1-1, 1 lost. So whatever is going to happen, it's the winners that we will be seeing in the top 16 races. So it looks like Box is again the first one to reach Marsh Cave. Now Marsh Cave is a pretty easygoing dungeon. It's their first dungeon they have to go through, and it's got one of the lowest encounter rates in all of the dungeons in the game. So it's definitely a nice dungeon to start with. They're gonna have to go to the center of B3 to pick up the crown, where they have to fight some Pisco demons. Now in general, you'll notice that these guys are gonna heal before that fight, just to make sure that they won't die to the Pisco demons. Looks like Box opted not to. Takes quite a bit of damage on the thief, but manages to get out regardless. So that is first one out of the way. So Box getting a very low 9-minute crown. Very, very solid start for Boxmeister. That's one of the best crown times I've seen this tournament so far. So it looks like Box is off to a really, really solid start right here. So Ausabe and Nehbless pretty much entering Marsh Cave at the exact same time. Ausabe getting an encounter there, but it's preemptive so he can run away. Boxmeister struggling with some Bloodbones and Crawlers and the likes. Now this is a tough encounter to deal with. Crawler, Skeleton, Bloodbone is generally not one that you'll want to see because they tend to be kind of hard to run from. definitely is going to give Ausabe a chance to catch up just that little bit again if he gets a good marsh cave. It looks like Nehbless now also on the Pisco Demons, as Kibetha is still struggling with the wolves on the overworld. Kibetha getting some really bad RNG up to this point. Still gonna try to run away. She is trying her best to just get rid of these encounters, and she finally manages to, but she has taken quite a disadvantage here. She's quite a bit of time behind Nehbless at the moment, and she is going to need to make that up somehow. Looks like Boxmeister overall getting some pretty good encounters as he moves towards Astos' keep, where he is going to fight Astos in order to get the eye so that he can get the Jolt Tonic. Gets a 7-wolf encounter now. That can be a nasty encounter. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but certain encounters in the game tend to be a lot harder to run from than others. And all of that is basically determined by the agility stat. Now, these runners will all pick up items that will help raise their agility later on. The problem is they can't really access that yet. So as much as they will try, they'll have to just sit through these first 10, pretty much like 16, 17 minutes of the game, just hoping to get lucky. Now, some certain encounters, among others, wolves, Sahagans, which we saw before, those are all encounters that tend to be really difficult to run from because they have very high agility stats. So all of these runners are kind of hoping to not need to sit through those, because they know that those are generally the biggest time wastes. Boxmeister looks like he's gonna get a good fight with Astos here. Astos can do a few things. He's got a death spell, and if that hits one of the mages, that can possibly make it a 2-turn fight. But he gets through the fight really well. He gets all of the level ups, and he's going to be the first moving on from Astos towards the Jolt Tonic. It looks like Ausabe isn't all that far behind though. He's making his way towards Astos' keep, and so is Nehbless. Nehbless being the second to enter Astos' keep, and gonna now also start the fight with Astos. Looks like he's opting to take some extra heal, just take that extra bit of safety in case something would go wrong. He's got the time to spare. He's gonna move on, and there's Ausabe also entering Astos' keep, gonna start the fight with Astos. See if we'll get to see death on one of these two runners. Looks like Nehbless is getting a death on the white mage, gets the miss, so that is not going to affect him at all. Death miss is ideally you want to see a physical hit, but death miss is probably the next best thing that can happen. Ausabe just getting the physical hit. Kibetha now out of Marsh Cave, also going to head towards Astos. So overall, for at least the first bit of the race, it looks like Box has taken up a decent lead here. He's definitely still got a long way to go, but he's taken up a fairly decent lead on Ausabe for the first part at least. Same goes for Nehbless on the race between Nehbless and Kibetha. So both of those getting some pretty decent starts. Ausabe getting a very decent start as well. Kibetha very much struggling with the encounters, unfortunately. I want to say Box is probably actually on a really good run, might even be on PB pace from the looks of it, at least for the first 15 minutes of the game. Ausabe and Nehbless, pretty average runs so far, so not all that bad. So Boxmeister docking his ship there. I want to mention real quick that is one of the decisions that we've already seen Ausabe make it earlier on in the run, but the way that you park the ship actually influences some of the run as well. You can park it as far into the route as possible, which Boxmeister did in this case as far right as possible, and then just because of that you can go a little bit faster because the movement in the ship is slightly faster. However, it does mean you're getting some extra encounter checks, so they're gonna either try to avoid that or they're just gonna take the encounters and hope for the best. And we saw Ausabe, you'll notice in a little bit, he parked his ship above Elfheim on the rightmost part, and that is for exactly that same reason. It's just skipping a few encounter checks with the hopes that that little bit of time loss in movement actually saves time because of being able to skip an encounter. Looks like Box got the Jolt Tonic out of the way. Nehbless there, parking the ship pretty much at the halfway point, kind of taking the halfway there. Taking one more tile to the right, gets that extra bit of movement, takes one extra encounter check as a result of it. Kibetha now finally also having beaten Astos on his way to the, or on her way, sorry, to get the Jolt Tonic. It looks like Ausabe is taking it pretty risky with his health. He's got all of his characters fairly low on health. Now, you may have noticed some of these runners opted to heal all of their characters to full before the Pisco Demons. Some of them may have opted to only heal the mages, some of them may not have healed at all. These are all different strats that these runners can take, depending on how risky they want to take it. The general rule of thumb is just heal everyone to full and you'll be guaranteed to pretty much be fine. But you have a slight chance that if the warrior and thief don't take enough damage, they'll be too high health later on for the grind, because of which you have to take a few extra steps so that you can take some damage. Boxmeister now getting into the Elven Castle, getting a low 16 Mystic Key. Now, generally for the Mystic Key, we say that around like 16 and a half is a very decent time, especially for a race. So Boxmeister getting a 16-10, very good time for an early game. So Boxmeister is going to be the first to pick up the Mithril Hammer here, and that's the first item that the runners are going to get that will help them increase their agility. So from the Mithril Hammer, they can glitch themselves the Thieves' Armlets, which is an item that, for each of them equipped, increases their agility by 5. The total defense that they get as a result is a little higher than a Knight's Armor, so it's definitely not a big deal defense-wise. The biggest thing is just that extra bit of agility, and that will make running away from encounters a lot easier on them. So it looks like Box is taking it a little slow on that menu, but he gets it done, gets out of here, and he's going to get some gold needles. Now this is another little thing. I think all of these runners are going for late gold needles. Basically there's 2 points in the run where you can pick up the gold needles if you pick them up. You can either do it here after the Mithril Hammer menu, or you can do it a lot earlier on your way to Marsh Cave. The difference between the two is very, very minimal. Neither is really significantly faster than the other. So it's really down to runner preference. I believe late gold needles is 2 steps. They need to take 2 steps more, but the extra steps they take, they'll have the Thieves' Armlet, so running away will be easier. So it's kind of a thing that, you know, in the long run, it's kind of going to even out. It might be like a second difference at most. So it looks like Ausabe finally on his way to get the Mystic Key as well. Gets a pretty rough start. Like 18-minute Mystic Key is still normal for a race. It's a little below average. It's not that right? It's not that bad a time in general, and it can still go anyway. Like with an 18-minute Mystic Key, like sub 130 times are still possible. We've seen that happen in one of the races already. So those kind of things, they're not out of the question, so he's not going to have to worry too much about his early game. But it does definitely show that Box has a very, very steady lead on Ausabe, as does Nehbless on Kibetha. So Boxmeister now heading into Mount Duragar. So he picked up the Nitro Powder in the starting town, and with that he's going to be able to blow up the canal so that he can actually get 4 crystals, or at least one of the 4 crystals. Basically this game, once you've done this part, it starts allowing you little bits of freedom as you go along. So at this point the runners will have the choice to go either to Crescent Lake or go into the Cavern of Earth and start getting the first crystal. Now the problem is, Crescent Lake, they can't really get anything there yet. They can get some equipment upgrades and all that, but for a speedrun that's not going to be needed. So instead they'll just head into Cavern of Earth. Once they have done Cavern of Earth, they can get the canoe, and with that they're granted a whole lot more freedom to basically go to more and more places as they go along. You'll notice that at around like the the 45-50 minute mark, bit depending on the RNG that these runners are going to get. They're pretty much going to have the freedom to go wherever they want, except for the final dungeon, all just to get those 4 crystals. You know, they need all 4 of them in order to get into the final dungeon and beat Garland one more time. So Kibetha now also getting her Mystic Key at the 20-minute mark. So from my rough judgment, it looks like Box has got about a 2-minute lead on Ausabe, and Nehbless has about a 2-minute lead on Kibetha. Now, that can still change completely as we go along, but it definitely goes to show what kind of differences we're looking at this point. So Nehbless also now entering Mount Duragar, gonna get that canal. Now, Boxmeister, he's gonna be the first to enter Melmond, and Melmond is a very, very special town for one reason. They're gonna get an item there, the Steel Gloves, and now, with the equipment that they have, you might think, okay, Steel Gloves might not be anything special, really. Except what they can do is that they can use the Steel Gloves to glitch themselves the Barbarian Swords, and the Barbarian Swords are by far the most powerful weapon in the game. Just for comparison, the next best sword has a base power of, I believe, 49, somewhere around there. They can use the Ragnarok, which is another bonus weapon, which can go up to 99 if you have at least 990 current HP. The Barbarian Sword has a base power of 125, as well as granting these runners a strength boost of 15. So not only is it about 2.5 to 3 times as powerful as the next best sword, it also grants them that strength boost. And normally you can only get it from like the hardest version of the Super Boss Chronodia. It's a really, really tough item to get. It's normally only equipable by the warrior. It's got a lot of disadvantages to it in order to get it. But once you get that weapon, it is an amazing weapon. And being able to glitch that from these Steel Gloves is going to give the runners a huge advantage damage-wise. Once we'll get to the next I want to call it a mini-boss, like one of the regular bosses of the game, you'll see what kind of power this sword holds. So Boxmeister, he's going to enter Cavern of Earth, and he's going to get to floor 3, which is where they're going to fight the Vampire, which is the next boss of the game. The basic idea is here, he needs to get that first crystal, and the Earth Crystal is the only one that's forced in the order of the crystals. It's always going to be the first crystal these runners are going to get. All of the other crystals, they can kind of opt out, and they can kind of play around with it. You can change the order of those crystals however you'd like, but the Earth Crystal has to be the first one. So it looks like Nehbless now also getting the Barbarian Swords on his end. And with that, he is also going to move for the Cavern of Earth. Now, Boxmeister just got some Pisco Demons, and the Pisco Demons are quite an interesting encounter, and it's the first actual unrunnable encounter that these guys are going to encounter. There are a few encounters that, no matter how hard you try, you'll never be able to run from them. And the Pisco Demons are one example of those, the first one they're going to see. Basically, when they made the game, they figured, okay, the Pisco Demons, they're a spiked tile earlier on. You're forced to fight them as sort of a mini-boss. So they're going to make it a forced encounter here, just to make sure that... they're going to make it an unrunnable encounter, because at that point, the first time you encounter them, they'd be unrunnable, and here they would be too. That counts for a few more enemies in the game. The Vampire, if encountered in a single one, it's always unrunnable, even though this is, for the PSP version, the only place you can encounter them. In other versions, you can encounter them as a single one separately as well. There you saw, by the way, how quickly he got to the Vampire, and it's basically a one-shot at this point. Another example would be the Evil Eye, which they're going to fight later on, which also becomes unrunnable. All kinds of like mini-bosses like that. So Boxmeister already on his way out of B3, got a very decent early game. 24-minute Vampire is very, very solid. Definitely looks like, for his doing, he should be on a very solid pace. Takes a wrong path, though. That is going to lose him some time. He just took a wrong path. He went up where he should have gone down. That is going to be a bit of a time loss. That's going to give Ausabe a good chance to catch up quite a bit. That's a little rough for Box, taking a wrong path there. Now, I will say, like, one of the main issues with learning this game is just learning where to go. The maps can be very confusing at times, and because you have to go through them in several orders and backwards and forwards, especially with a dungeon like Cavern of Earth, it can be kind of tricky at times. But this is definitely where that inexperience from Boxmeister shows a little bit. He gets away. He notices it quite quickly, so he gets away with it quite well. But that is definitely going to lose him some time, as now Ausabe is on B2 as well, or a B3 as well. So Boxmeister, despite the wrong path, still getting a very average time for a walk out. So it turns out it didn't actually hurt him too badly from the looks of it. Kibetha now also on the menu for the Barbarian Sword. Looks like she got stuck a little bit because she accidentally equipped the Steel Glove, and that can be a bit of a time loss as well. Accidentally equipping the Steel Glove basically means you need to equip the Thieves' Armlets again to overwrite that, and that can waste a little bit of time, especially when you don't expect it. But she gets it out of the way, and now she too can head into the Cavern of Earth. So you may have noticed, they were there for the first of the crystals, yet neither of these runners, Nehbless or Boxmeister, has actually gone for the crystal. They did pick up the Star Ruby and then they headed out. And the reason for that is a little bit further into that same floor, there's a stone slab blocking the stairs. Now, they can get rid of that, but in order to do so, they need to get the Earth Rod, which they can only get after having passed that giant that Boxmeister just passed. For which they need the Star Ruby. So they basically need to walk out of the cave again, get the Earth Rod in order to go back into the cave and actually finish it up. So Boxmeister getting a 27.5-minute Earth Rod. Very, very solid time. I do want to mention that Boxmeister currently definitely on a sub 130 pace. If he can keep up a pace like this, it is looking pretty good for him right now. So the question is, how long will he be able to keep up this pace? Ausabe getting trolled a little bit by Pisco Demons on the way out. Kibetha now making her way towards the vampire as Nehbless is making his way out of the dungeon. So I guess I'll mention again, for those that recently came in, we've got ourselves a match between the 4 runners of the vampire group, which are all currently tied 1 win, 1 loss. So the 2 winners of these 2 races, those are the ones that'll move on. Kibetha getting, sorry, I have to mention this, Kibetha getting that Ochre Jelly encounter there. Now the Ochre Jelly actually is a 1 in 64 encounter in this floor and in floor 4. So that's actually a very rare encounter that she just got. I just find that a very hype encounter personally. Nehbless in the meantime talking to the giant. Ausabe still making his way out. Box back into the cavern. Now gonna make his way towards B5 so that he can fight the Lich. So Nebula is going to be the second one to pick up the Earth Rod from the looks of it. Box still having a very steady lead. Kibetha getting cockatrices. Now starting floor 3 of Cavern of Earth, we got to see the first encounter that can technically kill your run. the cockatrices, which is an encounter that is capable of petrifying a character upon hit. Most runners will take a first safety save on B3 to make sure that if that happens, they at least have some backup and they can keep going. I think I've seen all of these except Boxmeister do just that. It's a very, very rare death, I do want to mention that. But the cockatrices, if they happen to ambush you and they happen to get you before you get a chance to do anything, then it's just run over right there. So they can be a bit of a pain. So I'm assuming Box, I mean, he is still fairly inexperienced, but he probably is just going to take the risk. I am kind of expecting that he will save before the Lich. The Lich being one of the more deadly fights in the run, having a spell called Blazara, which can actually instantly wipe your party at this point, especially at the health that these runners are at. I think if Box were to heal the mages to full, he may have a shot of being able to get away from or getting out of a Blazara, but it's going to be very hard regardless. Getting somewhat unlucky, getting some Wraiths. Wraiths are pretty painful encounters just because of how hard they are to run away from. Gets away from them though and is going to move on to the Lich, which is the first major boss of this. So up to this point, all of these runners, they've kind of been fighting some of the minor bosses of the game. Nothing too special yet. However, once they get to the Earth Crystal, they're going to fight the Lich. And the Lich is the first elemental archfiend of this game and one of the 4 or 5 major bosses that they need to fight. Looks like Box opting to heal the mages, so that should give him some safety. Is going to take the safety save here. With that, he at least has his save ready at Lich. And he's going to talk to the Lich, and it looks like he's going to get a mid-32 Lich time, which is very, very solid. Generally, for races, you're expecting like 33, 34 Lich. If you get a good run, 35, 36 if you got unlucky. For sub 130 attempts, generally you'd be looking at like the kind of times that Box is currently getting, like mid 32 and lower. So definitely a good first third of the game for Boxmeister. So as Box gets to the first crystal, we're going to see a bit of a cutscene play. All of these crystals, every single one of the 4, will have an animation play like this one, which is going to show them the unlocking of one of the bonus dungeons. The first one going to be for Earthgift Shrine. Now these bonus dungeons, they're only in the GBA version and later, and they basically contain some of the bosses from other Final Fantasies. This one containing the bosses from Final Fantasy III, the Dark Crystal bosses to be specific. So this is also like their only point in the game where they're going to get a very short, like 30-second break. It's going to give them that chance to catch a bit of a breath and before they actually move on into the other dungeons. Nehbless getting some bad luck with some Wights and Ghasts. Now this is going to be kind of dangerous for him. Wights and Ghasts have the ability to paralyze upon hit, and if they happen to paralyze all 4 of the party members, you're basically locked in what we call a paralock. Because of it being an ambush, that can be kind of dangerous. Runs have died to these guys before, although it's incredibly rare to happen this early on. He opts to go for the kill, which is definitely the safer strat there. Ausabe getting some cockatrices, so getting somewhat unlucky here as well. Gonna have to watch out for those petrifications that we mentioned. Gets away from it, can move on into the second half of Cavern Earth. Boxmeister taking more and more that steady lead. Like with every segment, it seems like his lead is growing ever so slightly. He's still on a very normal pace, but a very good one at that. Whereas Ausabe is having a pretty mediocre run. I don't want to say it's bad or anything. It's definitely like the kind of times that you can expect in races, but definitely not getting the RNG that Boxmeister is currently getting. Still, both of, or I want to say all four of the runners, from what I've seen, execution-wise, playing pretty well, making their decisions accordingly. And so far, that seems to be working in the favor of Boxmeister. So Nehbless now also killing the Lich, pretty much a 35 flat. Like I said, very, very normal time for a race. Boxmeister gonna get some Black Garbs here, and that's gonna be his first major equipment upgrade again in terms of armor. Basically what he's gonna do, he's got the Mithril Axe, and from the Mithril Axe we can get glitch into the Black Garbs, which give a plus 10 on agility rather than a plus 5 for each of them equipped. Now, because the only one that can equip the Mithril Axe is the Warrior, the only ones that can get those are the ones adjacent to the Warrior. You can opt to equip it on 3, you can opt to equip it on 2. It's basically just runner preference again. And looks like Boxmeister opted to just go for the 2. It's generally a little bit faster, but it is slightly more risky. But it helps in that you won't need as many formation changes. Switching the formations there means 2 additional formation changes, once here and later on again, to basically what it's currently at for Boxmeister, or for all of 4 of these runners for that matter. Looks like Kibetha got unlucky again with the Cockatrice, so she is getting stomped on by this game right now. She is not getting the luck. However, I will say everything can still change, because for the first of these 4 runners, the Cavern of Ice is about to come up, and Cavern of Ice is known as probably one of the biggest run killers out there. Cavern of Ice, which is the dungeon that Boxmeister is going to enter next, is the dungeon that has probably the most things that can kill. It's got a 1 in 64 encounter, the White Dragons. We tend to refer to them as the Double Dragons. They can just instantly kill you using Ice Storm. We call them Double Dragons because a Canadian runner of this game, and the current world record holder, Double Drop, he has lost a ton of runs to it in the past. We have got the Pisco Demons, which just waste a lot of time and are just flat out annoying. There's Cockatrices in there as well, which can petrify. There's several encounters that can paralyze upon hit. Whites, Ghasts, Spectres, Wraiths, just to name a few. We've got Mind Flyers, which can instantly kill upon hit, as well as having the ability to pretty much paralyze the entire party in one go. We've got Dark Wizard, which is a 3 in 64 encounter, which has Faraga, which can instantly kill your party. There's just so many things that can go wrong in Cavern of Ice. So it's definitely one of the more dangerous places in a run. And even though most of this stuff isn't as dangerous anymore because you have that additional running ability, there are just a lot of ways that runs can die in this place. Boxmeister getting the Mummy Cockatrice ambush. Now this would be a classic example. Let's say all 4 of them would have petrified. That would have just wiped his party instantly, and there wouldn't have been anything he could have done about it. So you'll notice most of the runners taking quite a few safety saves over the course of Cavern of Ice, just to play it a little safe on that one. Now I missed if Box actually went for a safety save or not, so not completely sure on that one. But this is definitely a place where you'll notice it a lot in general, both in races and in like no reset runs. Pretty much all of the runners will go for safety saves in Cavern of Ice because it is by far the most dangerous dungeon out there. Boxmeister now hitting the spiked tile, did not go for a safety save before it. Some runners tend to take a safety save before that tile, some don't. It's kind of runner preference. Again, it's kind of a risk-reward kind of thing. You can sack a few seconds, take those safety saves, or you can opt to just go for it and hope for the best. There we've got Kibetha now also on the ledge. She's been struggling quite a lot throughout this run, but it looks like she's gotten to the ledge. She gets the kill. She still gets the sub 40 despite all of the bad luck shit that she's been getting. So she still gets that out of the way. Boxmeister getting the Dark Wizard ambush. Now he is lucky that it was only one Dark Wizard and he didn't go for the Faraga. That Dark Wizard could have made things go very sour very quickly for Boxmeister. So he's going to drop down here, and what he's going to do is he's going to grind up a few levels on the mages. Now, because of the equipment, there's generally not much of a need for leveling, but the thing is, there's a few points in the run where you're going to need some spells. So what the runners are going to do, they're going to kill off their mages on the Evil Eye using the Thundara. Or the kill of the warrior and thief on the Evil Eye, leaving their mages alive, and then using the mages in order to get to level 18.5, which is the level they want to reach. The spells they want to get, they all require them to be level 19. The thing is, they can opt to go for 18.5 because there is still one dungeon they need to do in between, so they can just get the remaining level there. Looks like Kibetha got some really bad luck on some shadows as well. So shadows, the one that Kibetha now has, it's a very interesting encounter in that it's an encounter that's always an ambush or a preemptive. But it's usually a preemptive, so generally you like to see those, but they can be quite a pain if they ambush you with that many. Ausabe also getting an ambush, this time by specters and wraiths, and 7 of them for that matter. That's going to lose him a lot of time because those things can also paralyze, and it looks like he's actually getting pretty close to a paralock right here. Gonna have to opt to go for the Judgment Staff, gets the kill off, so at least is safe from those things, but that is quite a dangerous encounter in general. Looks like Boxmeister is getting pretty close to the end of his grind. Nehbless opting to just go for the kill on the Spectre Wraith Ghast combination. Taking the safe route there and just not trying to run away from it. Ausabe getting some Dark Wizards, but gets away with it. Just a preemptive encounter, so nothing to worry about it for Ausabe. And now Ausabe too going to move on into or towards the grind. As Boxmeister is pretty much finishing up the grind, he's going to heal up his characters and he's going to make his way out of the Cavern of Ice, back towards the mainland, where he's going to go get the airship. Now, I mentioned earlier that after the Earth Crystal, the runners are going to get a lot more options as to where to go. Once they get the canoe, which they get in Crescent Lake, which Kibetha is about to get, they basically have 3 places they can go. They can either go to the Cavern of Ice, where they can get the airship, or rather the Levy Stone, which will unlock the airship. Very useful item, and that's basically going to allow them to travel pretty much everywhere. They can go to Mount Gulk and get the second crystal, which is the Fire Crystal, which they will get as the second crystal, but they'll get it a little bit later. Or they can opt to go for the Citadel of Trials in order to get the Rat's Tail for the class change later. Now the class change, it's not really what they want to go for yet, because they will need the airship regardless in order to do the class change, which requires them to go to an island, which they can only do if they have the airship. So it makes more sense to do Ice first and then go for the Citadel of Trials. Now in the GBA and PSX run of this game, you'd actually do it the other way around, and I think for NES as well, although I'm not too familiar with the NES version myself. And the reason for that being that there is a sword there, which would be very useful in a glitchless run. But because these runners have the Barbarian Sword, that's not going to be enough of a reason to do Citadel of Trials first. So it looks like Ausabe also has the Levy Stone now. God his party member is down to low enough health, and he too is going to fight the Evil Eye. Same pretty much goes for Nehbless. Nehbless going for the Thundara there. Gets really unlucky, gets a high roll on the Black Mage. This is pretty rare to happen. If your Black Mage has got pretty low HP, if you get unlucky on that one, it can happen that the Black Mage is within range for killing from the Evil Eye, which messes up the grind a little bit. It's really annoying when that happens. If they play accordingly, it won't affect their run much. It loses a few seconds at most, but it can cause some problems if you do not react to it accordingly. So this is definitely going to be a test for Nehbless to see what is if he can keep it up skill-wise, whether he manages to recover from that. Boxmeister about to walk into the Ryokan Desert where he's going to get the airship. With that, at a 45-minute time, really solid time for an airship. Definitely having seen some both good execution and good luck from Boxmeister. He's made one slightly bigger mistake, but other than that, he hasn't seemed to make any major mistakes at all. So that, with a combination of the luck that he has to go along with it, it's definitely put him into a really good position here. Looks like he's taking a bit of an alternate route towards the Citadel of Trials. You can kind of do it in two ways. You can go up here into the big desert and land it like that, which is slightly slower by, I want to say, about 2 to 3 seconds. But it makes the navigation a little bit easier. So Boxmeister probably just gonna take the easy navigation there, going up instead of down, which has a lot more visual cues as to your location. If you take the other route, the amount of visual, there's basically one visual cue left. Whereas if you go up, you get visual cues all over the place. So it works out really nicely if you're not too experienced with the world map movement. Looks like Kibetha now also at the Evil Eye, gonna take the Thundara much like all of the other runners. Nehbless finishing up the grind, gets down there, and is now gonna finish up Cavern of Ice as well. Now the guy that Boxmeister just talked to, he's actually quite interesting in that in the NES version, you actually need to show him the crown as a proof that you're worthy to enter the Citadel. In later versions of the game, however, they decided, you need the crown regardless, because otherwise you couldn't have gotten this far. So instead, they just require you to talk to that guy at some point. So we're pretty much looking at the halfway point right now. Most of these runners pretty much done with their grind. Kibetha pretty much finishing up the grind. Looks like Boxmeister still has a very steady lead over Ausabe. If he can keep that lead into the second half of the game, he is in really good shape for actually moving on to the top 16 and leaving one of the favorites for the tournament behind right here in the group stage. So looks like Ausabe taking the slightly more optimal path of going down here, gets the visual cue, perfectly lands his ship pretty much. Now Boxmeister, he's going to get into an encounter with some nightmares, and he's going to have the option to either kill them or run away from them. It varies a lot from runner to runner what they'll do here. The nightmares tend to be a little tough to run from here. They tend to be quite a problematic encounter, so a lot of runners will just opt to just flat out kill them. However, running away is faster, and you're going to have to get through the nightmare encounter twice, so you generally want to try to save as much time as possible. So it's really up to the runner whether they're going to take the safe or the fast option there. Looks like Boxmeister is going to give it a second go. See if he can get it the second time around. Gets the run off, and with that saves a little bit of time. He got the fourth try run though, so it's pretty much about even at that point. But he still gets the run, so first turn run at least. Good enough. He's gonna get the gauntlet, and with that he's going for the rat's tail and out of this place. Now there's a few items that they're gonna get here, and you'd think the rat's tail allowing them to upgrade their characters and get that class change would be the most important item, but it's actually not. The main thing that these runners are looking for here is rather the healing staff, which is a staff that glitches into the lordly robes, which allows you to get a giant boost in magic, and that is effectively going to help these runners heal a lot more than they used to. As such, they'll only have needed to grind out the white mage to level 19 rather than having to grind her out to level 33 for Hilaga. The Boxmeister now on his way out pretty much gets back into a safe zone of the game. There's one more encounter that can cause a little bit of trouble, but it's pretty rare. Looks like he got the encounter though. He gets the sandworm, but he gets the kill off no problem. It's only when that sandworm ambushes you that it can be problematic, because it has a move called Earthquake, which is an instant death move at this point for all of these party members. Now, if it hits, and it happens to hit all four, it can cause a game over. It's very, very rare. We've only seen it a handful of times, but it can happen on occasion. I want to say, since the route change got introduced, where that was actually became a possible death, I want to say we've had like 5 to 6 deaths maybe over the year that has been in the route, so very, very uncommon, but it has happened before. Now, it does look like Ausabe got a very decent citadel as well. It looks like both of these runners are getting a little bit closer together. Box definitely still having the lead though. He's going to get into Mount Gulk a lot sooner than Ausabe, but they seem to be closing up just a little bit again. In the meantime, Kibetha struggling to be able to keep up with Nehbless here. She's also about to get the airship, after which she can finally move on to the Citadel of Trials, but she is in a very, very tough position. She's going to have to make up several minutes over the course of like the 40 to 45 minutes that are left. So Boxmeister going to make his first stop here to buy some spells. They're going to get Healara and Teleport from Melmond, and then they're going to get Haste from Elfheim. Both of these spells, like Healara, basically what they need in order to make healing a lot faster, but also for the final boss where it becomes a very important spell. Teleport going to help them in 2 dungeons to skip a few floors, saves a few minutes to get that. Very useful as well. Haste only going to be used on 2 fights in the game, which is the final boss and the boss before that. But basically, Haste allows them to double up their damage at the cost of 1 move from the Black Mage. Looks like Kibetha also getting the Sandworm, tries to run away from it, gets away with it, so she's going to be fine for now. It's always scary to see that Sandworm pop up whenever you're doing a run like this, because those things can be quite dangerous if you're not careful. Boxmeister getting the ethers on top of his inventory, making it a little bit easier for him to heal later on. He's going to get to full health, and you're going to notice that as he goes through Mount Gulk, and the same will go for Ausabe in a little bit, you're going to notice that he's going to try to take as many lava tiles as possible. Now, that's not without reason, because these lava tiles, they do take 1 damage every single time they step on one. However, it's going to not give them an encounter check. So every single time they step on a lava tile, there's no encounter check. Basically meaning that as long as they move properly, they're basically going to be able to skip most encounters in this dungeon. Boxmeister getting very unlucky, getting 3 really bad encounters back to back. Seems like he gets away from all 3 of them pretty quickly, but definitely somewhat unlucky here in getting this many. Ausabe gonna take a bit of a different route. He's going to get the Oxyale first. This is a bit of an alternative route. I believe the difference between the route that Ausabe is taking and the route that Box is taking is, I want to say, about 4 seconds in favor of Boxmeister. Ausabe picking a bit of an older route, so to speak. It's definitely where that, where you get to see that Ausabe has been running this game for a long time. So he's got some bits of movement that have been slightly outdated, so to speak. Still very, very useful way of moving. Still definitely works no problem. The but that's going to diverge these routes a little bit, and it's going to make it look like Boxmeister is going to be slightly more ahead than he actually is, because the part that Ausabe is doing is a little bit longer, be it not by very much. Once these two are going to head into the Sunken Shrine, we'll see the routes pretty much converge again, and they're going to pretty much be even again from that point onward. Boxmeister getting to Merilith, the second major boss of the game. Gets her down no problem and gets the Fire Crystal, which makes him the second one to get the... or the first one to get the second crystal. Now, in an old route of this game, and this is quite some time back, I'm talking like a year and a half ago, we actually used to do the Fire Crystal as the last of the crystals, the last of the 4 crystals, because of the way that the movement ended up working out. After very extensive testing and with all of the route changes that have happened since then, it turned out that this path was slightly less optimal. Not by much, but I want to say about 10-second difference there. So ever since then, we've been doing the Fire Dungeon, the Fire Crystal, as the second of the crystals rather than 4th. Which, because of that, it actually ends up in such a way that they end up doing the crystals in the intended order. Not all of the dungeons in the intended order, but the crystals are still in the order that, you know, the game expects you to get them. So Boxmeister are going to park his ship, and he's now also going to get the Oxy Ale, which the Oxy Ale is an item. Ausabe already got it. Which they're going to use in order, or which they're going to need in order to be able to breathe underwater. And the next dungeon, as you may have expected, is going to be the water dungeon. So, you know, having that item is going to make it quite useful for them. Can't really enter an underwater dungeon if you don't have a way to actually breathe. So Boxmeister trying to teleport out of that out of Caravan, definitely a strat that he probably thought of on the fly. It doesn't actually save time to do that here. It would set up the menu if it would work, which in that case it would have actually saved time, but because it only gets you out of the building, it doesn't end up actually saving anything. So Ausabe now also having gotten the kill on Merilith, Nehbless also getting the kill. Now, in general, for most of these runners, their aim is going to be to get the Fire Crystal at about the 1 hour mark, preferably a little under the 1 hour mark. Looks like all 3 of those runners have gotten it. Kibetha is probably not going to get it, considering how much other stuff she has left to do before she can actually get there, so... Going to be a bit of a disadvantage again for Kibetha, which is just going to show how far she's behind at the moment. It's not impossible for her to make up, but it's pretty much going to be requiring a death or a major mistake from Nehbless's side if she wants to catch up in that last half an hour. Looks like Ausabe's got a bit of a problem. Looks like his mages aren't at the level that he wanted them to be. That is going to be pretty rough for Ausabe, because that means he has to kill a few additional encounters in order to get the required levels. So this is definitely a major downside for Ausabe here. The fact that he does not yet have the levels. He's going to get them here, but that is definitely going to lose him a lot of time, because he now has to get back to Melmond again, still by the spells, before he can actually move on to Sunken Shrine. That's about a minute worth of time loss right there. He basically needs to get these spells before going into the next dungeon, because getting into the next dungeon without the spells means you don't have teleport, and that just loses several minutes because of extra movement. It can lose anywhere between 1.5 minutes to about 3.5 minutes, depending on the luck, because of the amount of unrunnables that are there. Generally, on average, you'll lose about 2 minutes if you don't have that, so it's definitely worth it for him to still get it. But that is just very, very painful. Looks like Boxmeister getting a little unlucky, doubts what he does on the water elementals. The water elementals actually being an unrunnable encounter here. Tries to run away from it after doubting himself for a bit, makes a pretty wrong choice in that one. Gonna go for the kill on the second one, probably figured out that, hey, this might not actually be runnable. So he's going to go kill off these things so that he can actually move on for the Rosetta Stone. So they're basically gonna do two things in the Sunken Shrine. First of all, they're gonna move up, and that's in order to get the Rosetta Stone, which they need in order to learn Lofenian later, which they need in order to be able to access the Flying Fortress, the 4th dungeon later on. Aside from that, they're actually gonna be able to, complete the dungeon, meaning beat the Kraken, so that they can actually get the Water Crystal, which means 3 out of the way. Now, generally for the sub 130 times, what you're looking for is about a sub 1 Rosetta Stone. So Boxmeister got like a 101, pretty close to that. Definitely looking like Boxmeister is on a PB pace right here. Actually going to on that real quick, but I think Boxmeister is looking like he's if he can keep this up, PB by quite a bit, his PB being a 136, and if he can keep up the pace, 131 is not out of the question here. So Kibetha getting a 102 Merilith, definitely getting one of the worst runs of her life for this one. That is pretty much gonna give Nehbless that free win, unless Nehbless gets a death or something. Definitely not over yet, but it's gonna be tough for Kibetha to make this one up. So Ausabe getting a little unlucky with the Water Naga ambush, goes for the runaway, gets it, so he gets to move on. But that's definitely where one of those encounters is a little bit more annoying. Gets the Sahakan Prince-in-Chief. I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but the Sunken Shrine is notorious for the amount of unrunnable encounters that it has. It's got a Sahagan Prince-in-Chief combination, which is unrunnable, probably one of the worst unrunnables in the game. It's got the ghosts, which we've already seen on Boxmeister's end. We've got the water elementals, which we've already seen a few of. And those are they're all very common encounters, and that makes this dungeon have probably one of the worst rates of unrunnable encounters in the game. So that makes it so that, if they get unlucky and they get a lot of those unrunnables, they can lose a lot of time all of a sudden. Looks like Kibetha gets the Ogre Mage Hellhound, which is a pretty rare unrunnable as well. Where Ausabe gets the Ghosts. Now Boxmeister is steadily making his way through one of the most daunting menus of the game. He's pretty much like 2 menus away from having his final set of equipment. He equipped the survival vests, which adds another 5 agility on top of those black garbs. So plus 15 on agility for each of the survival vests equipped, giving him a total of plus 45 on agility, as well as getting the lordly robes on the white mage, which is gonna pretty much set him up for the final boss fight, where he's gonna need those lordly robes in order to be able to heal enough during the final boss. So Ausabe also working his way through the menu definitely shows, you know, that he has that menuing under control. He gets a little tough near the end here, though. It looks like he's struggling with one of these glitches. Started off as a very strong menu, but definitely lost that in the second half, which is really unfortunate for Ausabe here. Gets the menu done though, and is now also going to move on to the Kraken. Now there is still a good difference between Boxmeister and Ausabe, but Ausabe definitely starting to catch up to Boxmeister here. Doesn't mean it's over yet, but these two are starting to get closer and closer together. So mid 105 Kraken kill on Boxmeister. Ausabe seems to be getting a pretty good final floor. Looks like Ausabe was able to make up a good chunk of that difference between these two runners during the Sunken Shrine. Guess that just goes to show what the Sunken Shrine can do at times. Probably puts these two runners, I want to say about a minute apart, might be a little bit more, might be a little bit less, but it's looking like we're looking at about a minute worth of difference still between the two, and that can change completely during these last few dungeons. So with that, we're going to get to see the last glimpse of all four of them being in the same dungeon. Boxmeister now heading out. Yeah, it looks like exactly a minute difference between Boxmeister and Ausabe. Still the lead on Boxmeister, but he is going to have to play his best if he wants to keep that lead. So with that, they're going to get into the Waterfall Cavern. Now, Waterfall has probably got the highest encounter rate in the game, except for maybe Mirage Tower. It'll be seeing a lot of encounters here. Now, because of the survival vests, it's generally pretty easy to run from everything. There is an unrunnable, but it's a 1 in 64, so it's very rare to actually see it. The nightmares that were kind of problematic earlier don't tend to be much of a problem because of survival vests. They can still get unlucky on it, but generally they're not that bad anymore. So the reason they need to go for Waterfall Cave, there's basically two items that they want to get. First of all, there's a ribbon, which is going to grant them immunity to all status effects, as well as give them a 50% resistance to elemental spells when it's equipped. So very useful item. But most importantly, they're going to get the Warp Cube, which is a item that they're going to be needing in order to get into the Flying Fortress. It's like a 108 Warp Cube from Boxmeister. Nehbless now also having killed the Kraken. Kibetha looks like she's catching up. She's definitely starting to close in on Nehbless a bit, but she's still got a long way to go. Now, in order to equip the ribbons, they're actually going to do a bit of a weird menu. So what they want to do is, the ribbon is actually an item that would be fine if they have that in the shield slot. So they're going to equip it into the shield slot, but they have a ribbon. So what they need to do is they need to glitch the ribbon into a Gigant Axe onto the warrior, and then from there glitch it into the shield slot on the characters that they want to have that on. So it looks like Boxmeister finished up his menu, gonna now teleport out. And he is with that done on the Waterfall Cave. He definitely lost some time on the menuing. That is going to be a chance for Ausabe to close the gap just that little bit more. We're going to see if he's going to be able to succeed, though. Because it looks like Ausabe generally lost some time in Waterfall in general. So if he wants to not lose too much time in general here, including the menu, then he is going to need a very very strong menu near the end here. Kibetha now also getting to the Kraken. Looks like she's got about a 2.5 minute difference with Nehbless, which is tough to make up in these last few segments. Not impossible, but definitely tough. Yeah, it's looking like Ausabe definitely lost some time here. Makes the mistake of equipping the Gigantex on the Thief. That's going to slow him down a bit, because that means he's going to have to re-equip a Barbarian Sword. Basically requiring an extra set of glitching. He gets that out of the way though. Looking like a 1 minute and 1 minute and 15 second difference right now between Boxmeister and Ausabe. Now, once they get that, and once they're out of these places, what they're going to do is they're going to go to Melmond. They're going to learn Lufenian, which is this forgotten language. And with having learned Lufenian, they can go towards Lufenia and get the Chime. They need the Chime in order to open up the Mirage Tower, which is kind of like the gateway towards the Flying Fortress. And they need the Warp Cube, which they got from the robot, to warp from the from the Mirage Tower into the Flying Fortress. It's all neatly tied together here. So as soon as they get the Chime, get the Warp Cube, they're basically ready to do the last of the crystals, and before they can, and then afterwards they can head into the final dungeon. So Boxmeister getting the Chime just under a 1 hour and 12 minutes, which is definitely still a very good time for Boxmeister. I still want to say that he is looking like he's on PB pace right now, so I see if he can keep that up and if he can actually pull out a PB out of this as well. Because at this point, that is not looking impossible for Boxmeister. Now, as Box is heading back up to the airship, Ausabe is going to make his way down to also start getting the Chime. Looks like Kibetha is about to reach the end of Waterfall as well. She's getting pretty close. Nehbless learning Lufenian. So it's definitely Nehbless and Kibetha being fairly close together. Not close enough that it's going to make it easy for Kibetha to catch up. But close enough that it's not completely impossible. And the same goes for Box and Ausabe pretty much. They're not super close together, but it's definitely, you know, still anyone's game, and it can definitely all still happen. Boxmeister getting a little lucky with that 5 encounter Guardian ambush. Ausabe getting the 4 Minotaur zombie unrunnable. Nehbless getting several Minotaur zombies unrunnable. Definitely a tough fight for all of these. Looks like Kibetha is opting to just kill the cockatrices and the mummies and the likes. Those cockatrices and pyralisks, they are a spike tile, so they're always going to see it. But as usual with cockatrices and pyralisks, they can be a little dangerous. So it looks like Kibetha opted to just take the safe route. She seems to have had enough bad RNG as it is, and she is not going to take any risks right now. So Boxmeister about to get to the top of Mirage Tower, after which he's going to get into the Flying Fortress, get that last crystal so that he can move into the final dungeon. Now, as we're getting close to the end, I do want to mention that the victors of each of these races, Ausabe versus Boxmeister and Nehbless versus Kibetha, are the ones that will move into the top 16 leaving the other one behind. These are all from the same group. They're all in group Vampire, and they're all 1-1, 1 loss right now. So I can't imagine what these runners currently are feeling like. This must be quite a struggle for them, considering, you know, these runs are not going to go easy on them. Looks like Kibetha is making a bit of an execution mistake there. Gets a Hellhound without the Ogre Mage, but with the Ogre Mage officially in it, making it a weird, unrunnable encounter. It's one that we've seen several runners throughout the tournaments get stuck on already. It looks like Kibetha is not going to be an exception to that one. Boxmeister getting that Evil Eye mini-boss that we saw before. Gonna have to go kill it because it is an unrunnable encounter. But it looks like he's getting pretty close to the end of the Flying Fortress. Flying Fortress itself is not a very long dungeon. It's got a lot of items. So casually, this is one of those dungeons that, you know, if you keep exploring, you'll keep finding new treasure because there's just so much to find. Definitely starts basically setting up the player for that final dungeon that's coming up. But these runners not needing any of that equipment, just going to move out of this place as quickly as they can. Now there is one encounter on the last floor specifically that I want to mention. Chances are they'll heal and save for that one. Looks like Box did go for the heal, did not go for the save. That's the 1 in 64 War Mech, which is one of the best and one of the worst encounters at the same time. It's very deadly. However, it gets more experience and than any other enemy in the game. It gets you 32,000 kill and experience. Very, very useful. Very, very useful item right there. So Nehbless now entering the Flying Fortress. Boxmeister, having killed Tiamat, gets the last crystal and is now set up to go for the final dungeon of the game. Now, if he can keep his lead throughout this last dungeon, he is pretty much set. Ausabe isn't that far behind him. He's still keeping up with Boxmeister. But if Ausabe can... or if Boxmeister can get a good Chaos Shrine, he's pretty much set for top 16 right here. Which, he is definitely not the favorite in this match. He's got the worst average time of all 4 of these runners. But it looks like his final match is going to be his shot to still make it to the top 16. Ausabe now also entering the last floor, does not go for a save or a heal, just immediately heads for the boss because he knows that it's gonna be close and that he's gonna need to try and catch up with Boxmeister. The gap is small enough that it's gonna take every little bit that he can get if he wants to still get a win out of this. Now, on Boxmeister's ends, we see the last of the bonus dungeons unlock the Labyrinth of Time, which only gets unlocked once you have all 4 of the crystals. And it's one of the PSP exclusive bonus dungeons, or at least the 20th anniversary edition and later. And with all 4 of the crystals, he's going to open up the time portal. He's going to travel 2,000 years into the past to fight Chaos to fight Garland one more time and break the time loop. So Boxmeister taking his safety save. Looks like he's gonna ether up to full and probably go for a... Yeah, there we go. The heal. Healing up to full with ethers, taking the safety save, and off we go. This is it for Boxmeister. If he gets a good Chaos Shrine, it's pretty much game, set, and match. However, Ausabe is close enough that this dungeon can still make the difference. So we're going to have to see what's going to happen. Looks like Boxmeister gets into the Ice Giga's Winter Wolf, which is kind of an annoying unrunnable in that there's not really a good way to deal with it. The only Judgment Staff attack that will kill is from the White Mage, and she is the slowest, especially since she doesn't have the Survival Vest. So Boxmeister knows that only the White Mage will kill, so he goes for a kill with the White Mage herself, definitely taking a right decision there. And with that, Box gets to the first of the 6 major fights of this dungeon, the Death Eye. Death Eye having very little health, but having really high defenses. Casually makes him a little harder to beat because of the glitch, which pretty much just ignores that defense. It's not going to be a problem at all. Looks like Kibetha has made it into the Flying Fortress as well as Nehbless killed off Tiamat. Ausabe about to enter Chaos' Shrine. Boxmeister about to enter the second half of Chaos' Shrine. Now, I will say, if Box can keep up the pace that he currently has, he's probably looking at a 3 to 4 minute PB. He is in very good shape to cut his PB by a lot right now, so kind of curious to see if he'll be able to actually pull that off or not. He kind of seems to be debating on how to deal with these dragon zombies, goes for the Judgment Staff strat. That gets the dragon zombies out of the way. They can move on. Now, there's basically 2 unrunnables that you can get on that floor. You can either get the Dragon Zombies, which is pretty much the good one of the 2, or you can get unlucky and get the Ice Giga's Winter Wolf, which is a much slower encounter to deal with. Ausabe getting to the Death Eye as well, basically being a little over a floor behind Boxmeister. Very close match between these 2. Now, there is still, once they head into the basement of Chaos' Shrine, there's still 5 floors they need to go through. So each of these floors can completely change the outcome of the match depending on what happens. Boxmeister getting really unlucky, goes for the kill on the White Dragons just to play it safe and get that encounter out of the way. Looks like Ausabe got some Dragon Zombies to deal with as well. So definitely a tough call there for Box. That White Dragon is going to lose him some right there. Goes for the safety heal, but that basically means that Ausabe has pretty much just caught up. Less than a floor difference between these 2 at this point. Looks like Chaos' Shrine is going to be the decisive part of this run. This is pretty much down to the Chaos fight, the encounter rates on each of these floors, and especially the Kraken 2 floor, which is the 3rd of the basement floors that they need to go through. It's basically going to come down to these few places that are going to determine which of these runners is going to end up winning this match, securing their place into the top 16. Ooh, Box getting that 4 Earth Elemental ambush. Not really sure how to deal with it from the looks of it. Goes for the Judgment Staff on the Black Mage. But Ausabe pretty much taking the lead now. This is a match if I've ever seen one. Boxmeister, who kept a steady lead throughout the entire race, is now giving away his lead to Ausabe as he goes into the Lich 2 fight. Ausabe getting a flare off, or gets the flare from Lich. Boxmeister does not get the flare. Boxmeister taking back the lead from Ausabe. As we've got ourselves a race that is literally seconds apart between these 2. Nehbless still having a very safe lead on Kibetha. But Boxmeister and Ausabe, this is going to be a match. These 2 racers are so close together right now that it can really go either way. Boxmeister, who has kept his lead the entire run, now seems to be losing that right at the very end. Gets into the Merilith 2 fight first, though, still has a very, very small lead on Ausabe, but we're talking seconds right now. Ooh, Ausabe getting the fire elemental encounter. That's going to be a bit of a time loss for Ausabe because he will have to kill that encounter right there. With that, we have all 4 of our runners into the Chaos Shrine. Kibetha definitely still being behind quite a bit on Nehbless. Boxmeister onto the Kraken floor is going to have to hope to get lucky here because the Kraken 2 floor can really go any direction. There's an unrunnable there, the water elementals, and if they get that, that can just lose them lots of time right there. So far, Box getting pretty unlucky on the amount of encounters, but still not having seen any of the water elementals, so this might still be fine for Boxmeister. Ausabe killing off Merilith, pretty much securing that these two are very close together. Boxmeister getting the water elementals, will have to go for a kill on these things. Gets the Judgment Staff off with the Black Mage. Ausabe also getting water elementals, decides to go for regular attacks. Boxmeister is still getting unlucky on getting more water elementals. These two runners, it looks like Nehbless is now completely catching up between the two. I think I'm seeing Ausabe take the lead from Boxmeister again. Is the first to head into the Kraken 2 fight. Boxmeister getting another encounter before that, can run away, so will now also start heading into the Kraken 2 fight. This fight, or this match, is gonna be determined by Chaos himself. This is quite something right here. This is pretty much down to Chaos and down to Tiamat 2. Looks like Box is going to go for the 2-turn on Kraken 2. Gonna lose a little bit of time to that. Ausabe gets another encounter before he gets to the stairs. Oh my, we do have a race right here. Ausabe getting an encounter between the two. 3 purple worms. That is going to give Box an opportunity to get into the Tiamat 2 fight first. It's back and forth between Ausabe and Boxmeister right now. Nehbless pretty much catching up to both of these runners. Kibetha heading onto the basement floors for Chaos' Shrine as well. Now, the fight with Tiamat is a little interesting in that they are going to use the haste spell for the very first time. They're going to use it on the thief in order to get that agility up, basically allowing the thief to deal double damage, which almost guarantees the 2-turn fight. Doesn't necessarily mean they will get it, but it definitely increases their chances. Boxmeister not getting the 2-turn fight, and we've got a tie pretty much. We have got a tie on the kill on Tiamat 2. Boxmeister getting the 3-turn, Ausabe getting the 2-turn. This is a match if I've ever seen one. It is gonna come down to Chaos. Ausabe getting one more encounter, the Vampire Lord and Dragon Zombie combination, which is runnable. Boxmeister going into the final equipment menu, pretty much just finishing up here. Let's see if he can get that done. Gets the Golden Staff glitch, is now going to have to heal up his party members, make sure he's full MP. Probably going to go for the save near the end, and at that point, it is time for the final boss himself. Does go for the save. There we go. Looks like Ausabe is going to get into the fight slightly earlier, but this fight is going to come down to Chaos. Whomever beats Chaos first is going to be the one moving on into the top 16. This is as close a match as I can imagine. These two racers, seconds apart. I do not think Ausabe took the safety save, which is why Ausabe was able to go into the fight slightly before Boxmeister. Pretty much just banking on a first turn, or first try on this fight. Looks like Boxmeister's got some good HP rolls. That's going to help him along with these fights a little bit as well. Nehbless now also going into the Chaos fight. It's going to be close to see who's going to finish this first, because this is basically down to whomever gets the better RNG on this fight. Now, I will mention a PB for Boxmeister is pretty much guaranteed right now. It's just gonna have to come down to who is gonna be the very first to hit that final hit on Chaos. Because it is a race right there. Oh. So both of these should be getting pretty close to a kill right about now. Box getting some good hits off. Ausabe may have the lead very slightly. Gets a physical on the Warrior, which is good for him. Does he get the kill? He does not yet get the kill. Does Boxmeister? Boxmeister getting his ninja killed off. That is going to hurt Boxmeister quite badly. Boxmeister getting the kill. Ausabe getting the kill a second later. A second apart right there. I am going to verify with the SRL timing here. Looks like Boxmeister is moving on into the top 16 by a 2-second margin in favor of Boxmeister. That is the closest race I have ever seen here.
I just
on Final Fantasy
look at the race channel. I won by
that
2 seconds from my opponent.
Seconds
this is
apart
crazy.
on the SRL timer in favor of Boxmeister.
Freaking crazy.
This is the closest I have ever seen a Final Fantasy 1 race end.
Oh my god.
This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm gonna see if I can get these two runners in here, because that is a race we will be talking about for a long time to come. That is the closest that I have ever seen it, and I think that counts for these runners as well. I think Boxmeister, by the way, PBing by over 5 minutes here. Both of these getting a very, very solid last run. So that is quite the finish. Nehbless also getting the finish here, making it so that Boxmeister and Nehbless will be the two moving on into the top 16, and we are gonna say goodbye to Ausabe and Kibetha for this tournament. Both of them having played very, very well over the course of the tournament. All 4 of these racers having shown what they've got in this last match. Kibetha unfortunately running short on the RNG. But that race between Ausabe and Boxmeister, they were not going to give this one away.
I am on a sick PB pace.
My cover was good, but wow.
So I am in right now by Boxmeister and Ausabe. Now, Fiesel, if you haven't yet, I'm going to ask you to switch over the game audio to Kibetha, just to not get any echoes and stuff. First of all, congratulations, Boxmeister. That is the closest finish I think I've ever seen in a Final Fantasy 1 match.
I really need to watch that back. I PB'd by 5 freaking minutes.
Yeah, I saw. We got the 5-minute PB, and we've got a 2-second difference in the final time. So, first of all, Boxmeister, I mean, you've been in the lead pretty much the entire race.
Yeah, I expected so. My start was freaking, well, except for the Cornelia, it was amazing. I was on such a good pace at Marsh Cave and Astos. I mean, at Astos I saw like, wait a minute, at this point I should be at the Crown in Marsh Cave. I'm 1 split ahead. So yeah, that was a brutal or brutally good RNG on my part. Really.
And Ausabe, I mean, you had a very, very good end game there. You definitely caught up a lot.
Wow.
How do you feel about the run in general?
I have a good end, but the beginning that can be worst. I have something like 5 minutes of difference with Box at the beginning on the leash. That was just awful, very awful start. I don't know. I don't know how that can be 131. And finish with 2 seconds of difference is just amazing.
Yeah,
So GG Box.
So for both of you guys, I mean, you must have seen that 2-second difference come in at the end there. Now I want to confirm, by the way, on the life split timers, the difference is just over a second, just over a full second.
Yeah.
I expected so.
So as soon as you saw that you guys finished that close up together, what went through your mind as you saw that?
Well, basically, if you in the IRC channel, I typed immediately "no freaking way" because I totally wasn't expecting. It was like, what the hell? I mean, I was like, yay, I finished first and I PB'd, and then suddenly that message of Ausabe popped up and like, wait, he's my opponent. Whoa. Yeah, really mind blowing.
And for you, Ausabe, same question pretty much.
I think at the end with my Kosa, I say on my head, oh, I will win finally, it's so close, and finally I lost when I split, but it's okay because I can do, I think I lost 2 or 3 seconds because I do an awful menu before chaos, that's why I don't save before chaos because I lose too many time on this sport, but I can't do anything more, so just it's a Box victory. I'm out now.
Yeah, so we saw near the end of the run, it pretty much was exactly tied at the end of the Tiamat fight. They literally flashed bit at the exact same moment.
Oh wow!
And then Ausabe, you got another encounter after that.
Yeah.
And to top it off, you still entered the Chaos fight first. Box did go for that safety save, and at that point, it looked like you were very slightly ahead by like half a second. And the race just ending that close together. Now I do want to ask, because Box, on your end, your ninja actually died near the end there.
Yeah.
You had a pretty rough. You were pretty close to a kill when it happened, but you still did get that near the very end. When the ninja died, what went through your mind as that happened?
Well, I thought like, wait a minute, I'm this far into the fight. I can handle that. And I mean, sure, I was all the race. I was like, do you know what? If I really focus myself on the RNG, I get the worst RNG possible. So what I did this race and is the same thing I did last race. I was like, okay, just relax. There's nothing you can do about the RNG. Just enjoy yourself and have a nice. Just lean back into the chair and sit and just perform. And and that worked really well. I got good RNG, although I started to get a bit nervous as I noticed that I was several minutes ahead of my PB at Lich already. So yeah, just relaxed. I was relaxed. I was like, either way, I'm gonna finish with a great, with far ahead of my PB, so I wasn't worried at all when my ninja died. Guys?
Yeah. So now, Boxmeister, you have to win the tournament because it's the final goal. We need a vampire.
So, Box, I mean, I do want to ask you this. I mean, I called you out as the underdog of the tournament on day one. Having made it to the top 16, how does it feel?
I totally wasn't expecting to make it the top 16, to be honest. I mean, for sure, first race I made major mistakes, and it was still pretty close with those major mistakes. So I was like, okay, if I only can get one victory in the pool, then sure, I'll take that as a minimum, and then I'll think it's fine. But it's totally unreal. It still hasn't really processed in my brain that I actually made it to the top 16.
So right now we're also going to be joined by Nehbless, who won the other match between Nehbless and Kibetha.
Nehbless was also really, really close, by the way, people.
Nehbless, first of all, congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
You got quite a run that kind of felt like it was going back and forth, although it seemed like a steady run. First of all, how do you feel about the win?
I'm really happy to be quite honest. I didn't know what to expect from this last tournament match, and I'm happy overall how it turned out.
So, all of the attention probably went to the Ausabe Boxmeister race because they finished. You probably saw that in the race channel as well, because of how close the match was. But near the end, you must have noticed. First of all, were you aware that because you were pretty much ahead the entire run? Were you aware of that fact, or?
No, I wasn't. I read in chat that Kibetha had really rough. I didn't have excellent RNG myself, so I didn't know where I was compared to her.
So, by the time you entered the Chaos fight, you must have seen that Kibetha had not yet finished the race. At that point, did you have, or what went through you as you noticed that you're almost at the end? She has not yet finished.
She has finished. Could you?
Yes, I meant at that time. She has finished by now, yes.
I entered Chaos Fight and I saw that she didn't finish on the SRL race channel, so at that point I was confident about the fact that I was most probably going to win that. So, and I had a very good Chaos Fight too, so.
So with that, I'm gonna get our last racer in here, Kibetha. Welcome, Kibetha. You had I just want to direct the question to you first. You had a very rough start.
Yeah.
Probably one of the roughest I've seen over the course of this tournament.
Definitely the worst run I've ever done, I think.
Yeah, so you still pulled off a pretty nice time with getting the 137, which is still a very solid time. But when you had that kind of start, what kind of went through you as you kept getting that rough RNG?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know if you guys noticed, I messed up at the beginning. I accidentally double-clicked my emulator, and then it full screened, and then I went into the menu, and it kind of just messed me up, and then I kind of messed up all the glitch menus, and then I was kind of tilting, and then RNG came along, and I was kind of just hanging on for dear life, please let me finish this.
Yeah, so that was definitely a rough match. When you saw Nehbless came in, you probably expected you were behind, from what I'm gathering and from what I saw you.
Yeah.
But when you saw Nehbless came in at a few minutes before you did, how did you feel at that point in time?
Just hope Chaos doesn't kill me again. Get to the end, last run, woo. Yeah, I basically kind of sort of realised it was going to be pretty much impossible to catch up. Kind of around Waterfall Cavern area, I was kind of like, okay, well, got to finish the race. And GG to Nehbless.
Thank you. GG to you.
Okay, so it looks like they're almost ready, setting up the next few runners. So first of all, thank you all for that race for tonight. Congrats again, Boxmeister and Nehbless, for moving into the top 16.
I want to add a little something. I want to thank Ausabe and Kibetha for some great matches. They performed spectacularly well in this pool. Don't forget that. I mean, at the start of this race, everyone every one of us could advance. They put up some great races here. I would like to thank them for that.
Oh, thank you, Cox. That's
Thanks.
lovely.
Yeah, this was definitely one of the most evenly matched pools that we had in the tournament. So congrats to Ausabe congrats to Boxmeister and Nehbless for moving on. Ausabe and Kibetha, we do of course hope to see you guys back next year. And I will be giving it over to the next few runners. Now, I'm not 100% confident who's on commentary for the next few races, or for the next race that is going to be happening. But to all of the remaining runners for tonight, best of luck. To all of the people in chat, enjoy the next match. And to all of the runners and to all of the guys that just raced, good job on quite the show tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congrats,
Thank
everyone.
you for commentary.
Hello. Alright, I guess I'm not sure if I'm live or not, but if I am, welcome everybody. Okay. Welcome everybody to another race between Poor Scythe and Green Cleric. Don't know if this race will be quite as exciting as the last one, but hopefully it will be. So I guess we're just waiting for them to get started here. Bring up the SRL race. But yeah, that last match sure was exciting. Alright, so these guys are entering in their names. The names don't matter, so I like to have a little bit of fun with it sometimes, or you can just pick the names that the game gives you. Looks like Poor Scythe's going with the standard names, and Green Cleric's going with fun names.